S.Z.A. or Super Zoom Action is a 39-inch profile foamie from Hacker Model USA. Made from EPP foam, this foamie features a true airfoil, carbon fiber landing gear, and unlimited 3D aerobatic performance. Out in front of me we have the pink variant of the S.Z.A. that we're going to be assembling today. I'm Alex from Hangar 14 RC. Let's get to building. First things first, before we start gluing anything together, we're gonna go ahead and fold all the control surfaces over on each other and weigh them down. In the meantime, we're gonna get our servos ready. Now we have 4 servos for this plane that we will need to cut all the little mounting tabs off of. Now, along with the servo arms that come with the servos, we also get some extensions in this card of parts. We're going to be using them as we want to get as much throw as possible out of these controls. These extensions clip onto the base of the servo arm and are then secured in place with string and S.Z.A. glue. Now, this process is a little bit different, but it actually works really well. Once we have all 4 of those assembled, we can go ahead and put them on our centered servos. Next, we have to drill some holes into our carbon fiber landing gear, both for the wheel axles and then by using this plywood mounting plate as a guide to drill the mounting holes that we will use to attach to the plane later. With all that done, our parts are almost ready to go. The last prep step, I guess you could say, is cutting and sticking these little hinge supports to all the control surfaces, both on the top and the bottom side of each one. Now that all that is done, we can actually get to assembling the plane itself. Making sure to lay down some wax paper first so we don't glue anything to our table. Now we're gonna go ahead and start with the wing, using some foam tack to stick the 2 wing halves together, and then using a large straight edge to give us a guide to cut a long slot across the bottom half of the wing for our carbon fiber support. Flipping the wing over to the top and doing the same, we then install one of our long flat pieces of carbon by pressing it down into the channel that we just made and then going over it with some foam safe S.Z.A. to secure it in place. The horizontal and vertical stabilizer already have these channels cut into them, which is really nice. So these supports went in super easy, simply pressing them into place and then again going over it with thin S.Z.A. Once that's done, we get to join the horizontal stabilizer to the rear half of our fuselage. Here, I use some of that same foam safe S.Z.A., making sure to get around the edges and locked it in place. Our plywood plate from earlier now gets glued into the front half of the fuselage on the bottom side. Flipping everything back over and bringing our wing back in, things actually start to move pretty quick. Using foam tack, we get to glue the front and rear half of the fuselage to the wing and make it one solid piece. Once we give that a chance to set, it's time to cut some more channels. These run all the way from the tail to the nose on both sides and will hold some more carbon fiber. But before we get those in, we have to put the bottom carbon support for the wing in first. Using some weight to make sure that the wing stays as flat as it can, we secure it with glue. Double checking that everything is still straight, we now press in the long carbon rods for the fuselage support. Using some pieces of cardboard, we can lift the entire plane off the table a little bit so it sits actually flat, so we can properly install the lower half of the fuselage. Here it's pressed into place, and then I ran a bead of foam safe S.Z.A. along both sides. Now we also have these foam gussets that get glued into place on both sides as well, and this actually adds a ton of strength to the fuselage as well as giving it a nice place to tuck some of our electronics. 2 pieces of carbon also get glued in for support, and we cut a slot to glue in our tail skid. The first electronics that we are going to install are our wing servos. Now these are glued into place using some foam tack and fit really nicely into these pockets. Once set, we snap on the included clevises that come in the hardware kit. These are our control horns for the aileron. Now they are 2 pieces that get tucked in and glued into this slot. Now our push rods are simply made by bending 90 degrees on one end of this and gluing the other end into the clevis. Our main landing gear can now be slid into place and secured down using a couple of screws. Our plywood motor mount also gets pressed into place for now, as well as our 2 other servos for the rudder and elevator, making sure we push the wires through on the same side. Once all that is done, we can go ahead and press the top half of the fuselage into place by aligning all the tabs, and then of course gluing it down with some more foam safe S.Z.A. I also did choose to use some accelerator here, as my glue did just seem to have a tough time setting up for some reason. A couple more dabs of foam tack on the servos will hold them in place, and we now have some more channels to cut for more carbon support. Now these align with the slots on the motor mount and add some strength to the front of the plane. Using the carbon itself as a guide, we cut the channels into the foam and then press them into place, securing them again with glue. We also hit the edges of the motor mount with some more S.Z.A. as well. Now the last piece of our airframe to assemble is our rudder, using S.Z.A. to attach it to the fuselage, taking some time to make sure that it's actually in the correct position and of course is straight. Here are our control horns for the elevator and rudder that we will install 2 more of those clevises to, and then get them glued into the pre-cut slots. Here I'm popping out all of the push rod guides. Now there are 2 different lengths to use, so we followed the diagram and the instructions and slid them on in the correct order onto our push rod. Once attached to the servo, we can then cut the push rod to the correct length and press the guides into place along the fuselage, using a little bit of glue to secure them down. And then of course doing the same for the other side for our rudder. Our landing gear do come with wheel pants, which are easily assembled using some S.Z.A. and some accelerator. Following the instruction diagram, we can then piece together the axle and wheel assembly and then glue on our wheel pant. Our motor from our power pack is then screwed into the motor mount using 4 screws, and for the first time we can finally power everything up and get it bound to our radio. And once we cut the spot for our battery, we are officially done. So here it is, the S.Z.A. Super Zoom Action from Hacker Model USA. This thing looks so cool. I have to say, the build itself was a little more involved, just considering some of the cutting of the channels that we had to do and the way that the push rods were assembled were just a little bit different, a little more time consuming. But it still went together great. Everything fit the way that it should. We didn't have a ton of those little carbon braces that we had to glue into place, since we have such thick EPP foam already, which is nice. It makes it a little more durable, a little more rigid. It went together actually really well. Now we have the Mad Bull sitting back here, which has been an awesome indoor 3D foamie, but I'm really excited for this one, as we'll be able to fly this outside quite a bit more, as it's a bit bigger and can tackle some of that slight wind a lot better. I think this is going to be a great 3D park flyer, and I can't wait to take it out flying for the first time, which will be very, very soon. So thank you, Hacker Model USA, for sending this plane out for me to take a look at and do some videos on. Truly appreciate it. And I can honestly say, with this being my second plane from them, that I truly do like what they have going on. I've been having so much fun with the Mad Bull, and I think I'm going to have even more fun with this one. So if you want to check out the S.Z.A. Super Zoom Action for yourself, or want to see what else that they have in their lineup, I'll put a link down in the description of this video for you to check out. And of course, we will be having the first flight video on this very soon, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. I'm Alex from Hangar 14 RC. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you later.